So I'm going to go ahead and briefly review the semester project. So whenever you're accessing the semester project, you're going to click on the classwork tab. You're going to see semester project. Click on that. Here you'll see a bunch of different documents about the semester project. You'll see an example. You'll see your instructions. You'll see the rubric, which you'll be graded on. And you'll see a template, which you can use when you create your own. So basically, here are the instructions. The semester project is 25% of your quarter grade. The semester project will act in place of your semester exam. So instead of the semester exam, you'll do the semester project. This project will be due on Monday, April 19th via Google Classroom. So you're just uploading it into this assignment. Your task is to create a presentation based on one topic we already discussed in this class. Your goal is to explain a topic to someone who might not have no clue about the topic you are presenting, explain the topic to the individual, and present how the individual might apply what they learned in your presentation in math and the real world. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to choose a topic, something we've gone over before, and you can create a presentation that discusses that topic. You're going to go over the very basic things about the topic. Basically, you're explaining to that topic to someone who has not seen this topic before. What is the topic even about? What does it contain? How is it used in math? And how does it apply to the real world? I went ahead and outlined what each slide must contain. At minimum, your presentation will contain each of these slides. You'll have a title slide, which includes the title, your name, and your class period. You will have a definition slide, which includes at least 2 academic words pertaining to the topic of your choice. It can have more, but at least 2. It will include a photo or clip art for each academic word you include. It will include a definition from each academic word included. And it will include a brief 1 to 2 sentence explaining how the academic word applies to your topic of choice. You can get your academic words from the academic words that I have shared with you in my PowerPoints and those definitions, or you can find them on your own. Whatever your preference is, but you do need at least 2 academic words, at least 2 photos, at least 2 definitions, and at least 2 sentences which explain how that academic word applies to your topic. For example, if I were to discuss slopes, I would say slopes describe a line. Slopes are the rate of change of a line, etc. Then I want to introduce that topic, discuss the topic. What are the very basics of that topic? What are you even discussing? Introduce your topic, or just explain it. That's basically what your introduction slide is. The next thing you're going to go ahead and do is put a practice problem. You can use a practice problem that we have already gone over, or you can find your own. You want to include at least 1 practice problem pertaining to your topic of choice. What you want to go ahead and do is include that practice problem, solve that practice problem, and show you solving that practice problem. But you also want to go ahead and include a step-by-step written commentary on how one can arrive at the correct answer. So step 1, I added. Step 2, I subtracted, etc., etc. Explain how someone can go step by step to answer that problem. Then you want to do a real-world connection slide. Basically, in this one, you're going to include at least 1 example of how this topic might be applied in the real physical world. Basically, where do you see this topic applied in the real world? It doesn't have to be super elaborate. It can be very basic, but just see how you can apply that. Where does it appear in the real world? The next thing is your conclusion slide. Basically, it's just a review of everything you've gone over. What is the takeaway of your presentation? What have you gone over? What are the bigger picture ideas that I should walk away with? Imagine you're presenting this presentation to someone who has no clue about this topic, and you're discussing what can they learn from this presentation? What are you walking away with? Depending on what class you are, you will choose from the following topics. Algebra 2 has this set of topics. Geometry, my 2nd and 5th period have part A set of topics, and then geometry 3rd period has my part B set of topics and my part A set of topics together. So you can choose from these lists of topics. You don't have to discuss the entirety of the topic. You can go ahead and focus on one aspect of the topic, whatever your preference is. This is the rubric you'll be graded on. Basically, it discusses your content, how your slides are, how your slide transitions are, your pictures, your clip art, your photographs, and your mechanics. How is your writing and all that things. Basically, I wouldn't worry too much about this. If you go ahead and turn in a presentation that contains all these slides, contains a couple photos, and some text, you'll go ahead and you'll receive a 100. So don't worry about this too much. So, like I said, you also have the rubric here that you can review, but you also have one thing, which is a template, which you can actually go ahead and use on your own. Basically, these are all, at minimum, all the slides that you will have, and basically what each slide should have. So you could use this as a template and just go off this. My first slide is going to have this, my second slide, my third slide, my fourth slide, my fifth slide, my sixth slide. So you'll have a total of 6 slides if you're doing the bare minimum. Again, you can go ahead and use this as a template. You can even put your information in here if you choose. I would go ahead and make a whole completely different presentation just for the purpose of aesthetics, but it's totally up to you. So this is just the template. It's basically a condensed version of those instructions. If you want to make sure you get all the points, just follow these. These are all the points that you need. And then you have my example. So my example, it looks a little bit more in detail, but all I really did was put a couple words and a couple pictures into an already created PowerPoint that had this really nice background. And so that's what I looked up. I just looked up math PowerPoint backgrounds. And so basically in mine, I chose the topic writing 2 variable linear equations, which we've gone over in all our classes. So that's why I chose this one. And then I went from that bigger topic and I condensed it to only doing, you can write linear equations for any type of line, but I consolidated it to only parallel and perpendicular lines. I could have just done only parallel lines or only perpendicular lines, but I chose to do both. You see my name, you see my class period. So that is slide 1. The next one is definitions. I went ahead and included 4 academic definitions. Again, you only need a minimum of 2, but I do have my definition, my word, my picture, and then a brief sentence. Like I said, the sentence does not have to be super elaborate. So for slope, I have parallel lines have equal slopes, perpendicular lines have negative reciprocal slopes. Because I'm discussing parallel and perpendicular lines, that is why slopes is relevant to me in this topic that I chose. Then I introduced it, my topic. So the first thing I had to do was obviously introduce how do we write linear equations, what are the different formulas for that. So that's what I went ahead and did. Then I just continued my information. I could have condensed it all to my 1 slide, but I decided to do 2. And then the next slide, I just basically, you don't have to write introduction, by the way. You can just write the parallel and perpendicular ends, but I just wrote introduction so you can kind of see what this information is part of. So again, I just condensed the information, made it as basic as possible for someone to understand if they had never seen this topic before. I didn't elaborate super much, and so yeah. Then I went ahead and chose a practice problem. In this practice problem, I actually write an equation for a perpendicular line. So you can see me going through that problem on the left side, each of those different steps, and then I actually went ahead and did a written commentary. This is the written part of those steps, so you can actually follow those steps to answer those problems if you don't actually know what I'm actually doing here, where I'm adding, where I'm subtracting, the reasoning behind these things. And then lastly, a real-world connection. I kept it very basic. I just discussed where parallel lines and perpendicular lines are found in the real world. So in some instances, wherever you see these things, maybe you might apply or you might ask, can I write a equation for that line? You never know. So it's a very basic real world connection. Doesn't have to be too complicated. And then lastly, what is the overall takeaway? When someone comes to my PowerPoint, they will learn how to write an equation of a line parallel or perpendicular to a given line, and they can do so by just completing these couple of steps. So very condensed version of this topic. Whenever we went over this topic, it was more lengthy. And so you're just going to condense it. You don't have to necessarily condense it, but I chose to do that. You do want to make it as simple as possible because, again, think that you are presenting this to someone who hasn't gone over this topic before. And then I just included a thank you. You don't have to. As far as where I got this information from, all the information, all the topics are in alignment with the different topics that we have already. So Unit 1 topics are here, Unit 2 topics are here, Unit 3. So if you're wondering where I got this different information, basically, let's say I was going to write information about this topic right here. And this topic is just, we'll see when it comes up, reflections. And so this topic's reflections. And from here, I can take out different academic terms. I can take out different pieces of information. I can even take out some practice problems and use this to my advantage. I can even, here's all my academic terms. I could only need to choose two. Here are my review concepts. So basically, if I wanted to go over the whole topic, I could just take this, put it in my own words a little, and that would be what I'm trying to take away from this topic. So it's whatever you choose, but you do have all this information available to you, so you're not really looking for anything new. Um, Everything is pretty much available to you. And you do have some practice problems that I've gone over. You have all these wonderful things. You just need to identify what topic you want and use this information to your advantage and make it in a condensed version where I can understand as your teacher that you understand this topic, and I can prove that you can actually teach this topic to someone else, and so you understand it well enough to do that. And so that's basically the gist of this presentation. Again, don't spend too much time on it, 25, 30 minutes at max. You're totally capable. There's so many topics to choose from, the very basics, a little more in depth, whatever your preference is, but basically that is what you're turning in. Basically a presentation in that format that I showed you, those 6 slides. If you want more, you can put more. If you don't have to. And just make sure to turn that in by Monday. Good luck, guys.